There's an old saying that if you don't know who the sucker at the poker table is, it's you. And that's what my biggest fear for all the retail investors now entering the market, investing in what are essentially becoming hyped businesses.
Well, we track close to 700 tokens, and I think what's been unusual in 2017 was that close to 80% had seen close to a 400% rally in a 3-month period.
There's certainly risks from an investor perspective. The vast majority of these tokens, these assets are going to go to zero.
I think we don't necessarily know how to value these today because they're fluctuating on a global scale that we haven't really seen before.
2017 was a crazy year in terms of price appreciation for pretty much everything. We're starting out the new year in a very sort of choppy mode. I think a lot of people are a little nervous. Some people are definitely taking a little bit of their money off the table. That's probably healthy.
In 2018, I also expect the same excitement around price as institutions come into the space. And the risk there is that price and the opportunity to make a quick return by investing in Bitcoin can become distracting from what we're really meant to do in the space, and that is to introduce a new paradigm that includes decentralized technologies.
And I think some of the kind of the excitement and speculation can be helpful in that it's a source of funding for lots of experimental projects that might otherwise not get funded. I think that said, I feel like the overall crypto market went up 45x last year. I think that's just, it's gotten ahead of itself.
I don't have to explain to people anymore what Bitcoin is or what Ethereum is. People actually know and they're caring and they're reading about it.
Well, I think 2018 has a couple of stories coming together. One is that I think institutional investors and traditional equity investors are really taking a hard look at this space for the first time. I think they're trying to look at it through the lens of equity companies, but I think they're eventually going to start to look at it through blockchain businesses itself.
The long-term through line is definitely up. But it's not like, $15 billion in 1 month with no product up.
We haven't yet seen the impact of regulation on ICOs. And I do feel like 2018 is going to be a year when a lot of regulation will start to emerge around ICOs.
My general view is initial coin offerings are by and large illegal securities offerings. And when the SEC decides to finally do something, they're going to come to a similar conclusion and force the secondary trading of ICOs to be done differently.
One of the risks that we've seen be most obstructive to companies building in the space is the cost of compliance with regulation or the cost of uncertainty.
I think there's nothing they can really do. Like, there's not that much they can do. And a lot of people are just going out of the country and doing this stuff.
Over 10 years, I think that governments around the world will adapt and allow for people to basically legalize ICOs, right? Legalize them for basically funding of anything. Maybe not every country, but enough of them will do it that the countries who don't allow that will be sort of left out.
There's an opportunity for a regulatory arbitrage play by international governments. Governments that are more permissive and that allow innovators room to build without themselves being censored or punished or threatened with punishment for building will see entrepreneurship and talent shift there.
Retail investors are fickle, and at some point there's going to be a crash. That money will dry up, and a lot of the money that's being invested in these ICOs I think are gains from Bitcoin and Ethereum. And if those assets aren't appreciating as quickly, people will have less money to throw around.
I think increasing accessibility for the everyday investor will be the primary thing going forward.
Well, I think one of the reasons blockchain hasn't connected with a lot of investors is that this is really a millennial phenomenon. That millennials have really driven tokenization or fractionalization in a lot of businesses. It's Uber and Airbnb, but more importantly, the millennials are the largest single population cohort in history. It's close to 95 million people, and they're now just entering prime income age.
On a global basis, though, I'm fairly bullish because the first million is the hardest, right? And so you've already got 30, 50 million people who hold cryptocurrency, tens of millions just on the major exchanges alone. Once you kind of got that breakout sort of success with thousands of people building token and blockchain projects this year, that's kind of a runway for your train.
I have seen multiple waves of overinvestment in categories, whether it was in cable infrastructure, whether it was in mobile infrastructure, or even the internet itself. So I think the overinvestment in ICOs that are happening right now, a lot of money is going to be lost. But what's going to come behind that is a wave of innovation that I think will surprise us all.